And we're live. All right, what's up, guys? It's World Extermination Radio. I am 40 Ounce, and I'm here with CapnClever.
Hello.
Hey, dude, what's going on? How you doing?
Not much. Just finishing getting my day straightened, basically.
Yeah.
It was just a very long work day of working.
Well, that's good. So, well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you for pretty much seeing every show live that I've done. You're always blowing up the chat, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate you getting some conversation riled up.
That's fun. I mean, just a lot of people probably listen because they're busy doing other things, but I like to, maintain an active, just participation role, even if it's in a very passive medium. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. So I know you've been doing a lot of stuff. I see you doing a lot of reviews on id games and stuff, and you posted a status. I noticed that you were like giving tips on like how to give good reviews and stuff.
That right?
Yeah, it was good, and yeah. So like, I wanted to know a little bit about you. So what is it about? When did you like get into like Doom, like playing Doom mods and stuff? Because I recognize you only from pretty recently. So you're like relatively new to the community. Is that right?
Yeah. I think my registration date was sometime in September of the previous year.
Okay. And what were you doing before you got into like Doom World?
A number of things. I guess the most prominently would have been my short, although slightly still active speedrunning career.
Oh, you do speedrunning?
Well, I have done. I'm not doing it a lot. I guess just to say that I'm not completely dead on it, I do have a run-in at Summer Games Done Quick 2017.
Oh, nice.
Which is top of July.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun. That's actually my my sixth coming to the event. So.
Whoa, nice. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So, what games do you speedrun?
Well, the way I started, and for anybody who's seen my icon on Doom World or on my Twitch page, Commander Keen is where I began things.
Commander Keen.
And yeah, and I played all 7 of the original, the official games, and I speedran all of those in terms of completing them as fast as possible, and for most of them, completing them as fast as possible while also finishing all of the levels, which I called 100%, but whatever.
Yeah. So is it a hard game to speedrun? I never played it before, so I don't really know a whole lot about Commander Keen.
Well, as with any game that you speedrun, it gets harder as you just try to push further and further into that optimal time. As close as you can is often the tool assisted speedrun, and sometimes you can't even get that far. But it's a platforming game. It's got variable jump height. It's pretty well controlled in terms of being able to push buttons and having them react. Overall, I wouldn't say it's too hard if you're aiming for a decent time, even within, say, 30 seconds of like the record times and stuff. But when you're pushing it, it's fairly optimized. It's not. I don't know if you've seen like the Super Mario Brothers 1 records or at all, where they're literally competing for single frames.
Wow.
To get records. It's nothing like that. I mean, most of them don't, but
what is the object in Commander Keen? Because I know like in Doom it's pretty much just get to the exit. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to get past everything. Is that kind of the same thing, Commander Keen, or is there like objectives that kind of mix it up?
Generally, it depends from game to game. There's a couple of episodes, most notably the shareware ones, episodes 1 and 4, where you have to collect a number of things throughout the levels, and when you've done so, the game ends. That means you don't have to finish all of the levels, but sometimes you have to finish levels to access others, things of that nature. It's a very non-linear game in that regard. So
okay.
It's kind of fun. There's actually a little bit of optimization when it comes to simply walking around the world map, making sure you know exactly where you're going and not straying at all.
That's pretty cool. Which of the Commander Keen games is your favorite?
5. That would be the Armageddon machine, and reason probably because that was the one that I played when I was a kid.
Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, I can kind of justify it in saying that the levels are far more colorful than most of the others. The general going through a level in terms of its progression is a lot more interesting than, say, Commander Keen 4, which is a lot of people's favorites. And just, I would say, even the more linearity or the more linear nature of the game kind of helps it. Whereas in a game like 4, you can go anywhere, but you have like zero thought on, do I do this level? Do I actually care if I need to finish it? Because sometimes the levels are just a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But in 5, it's very clear cut. You're going this direction, and at one point it kind of branches out and says, you can do any of these 4 levels. You have to do them, but you can do them in whatever order you feel like. And that sort of thing, I think, actually helped the game, even though it kind of went very away from the roots of previous games.
Yeah, but it makes it fun. But it makes it more fun to speedrun, right?
Well, in that case, because Keen 4 and Keen 5 are almost like night and day when it comes to the speedruns. In Keen 4, it's a relatively glitchless run, meaning that you're basically playing the game as intended. There's a little bit of a skip in the second level to speed things up, but honestly, that level would just be going from right to left, so it's not even that interesting. But Keen 5, within 20 seconds of the game, you're skipping a good like 4/5 of the entire run.
Oh wow!
Just using a glitch. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What are the glitches in that game? What do you do to speedrun that, or to get past certain things?
Well, in Keen 4, and it's kind of one of the most notable glitches that can be used all over the place. It's a death exit, and a death exit is basically when you. It's just kind of a generalized term stating you die, and then by using that death, you manage to exit the level prematurely rather than using the intended exit. It would, I guess, like a Doom equivalent. I don't even know how it would be possible, but there are death exits in Doom where like you can slide under something to finish the level. And sometimes that's not intended. That would be what would be called the death exit in Doom's case. In Keen, it plays a little differently because what you end up doing is that when Keen dies, he starts moving just like down and to the right. And he's actually allowed to ignore terrain as he does so to kind of make it something of a cartoony effect.
Oh, okay.
But when you save and reload the game, it actually doesn't save the fact that Keen has gotten hit. And that's the one thing that prevents him from, say, leaving a level in a way that would cause him to exit. The main thing that happens in every single one of these Keen levels, on the left and right sides, there's a boundary, and when you touch it, the level just ends. Normally, this is protected by a barrier, just like an invisible wall preventing you from doing so. But when you're dying and you do the save reload, that's no longer a problem. So you just kind of bounce to the end of the level until you just exit it. It's kind of funny.
That's hilarious. That's funny. I love those like little those little things that they do, like those little like glitches and stuff that they exploit to get past things. It's fun to watch like Doom speedruns where people like void glides through walls and they go, even though it's like not, and they can just kind of like bypass like all the levels. But it's really fun to watch like speedruns of Duke Nukem 3D because the build engine is just so fucking hacky.
Wow.
And they could just, I mean, I've seen some speedruns where like they can beat levels in like less than a couple seconds because they can just like find a place that you can crouch and like squeeze through.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That's good.
That's so fun.
Yeah, in Keen 5, the main glitch, the death exit is actually used to skip a pretty significant level. But the main glitch, and it's the weirdest thing. Basically, you allow an enemy to push you off of a pole. And for whatever reason that I don't quite understand because, we don't have the source code or anything to look at, but for whatever reason, this just subtly changes how Keen acts when he goes through a door. And the thing that's important to note is in the second last level of the game, there's a secret exit that you use, and it's a teleporter, and it kind of acts differently than going into a normal door. And that takes you to like the secret area in the world map. Now, when you activate this particular glitch, it treats any door like that secret door. And it just so coincidentally happens that when you finish the secret level, which of course can actually be finished through a secret exit that's way faster than the normal exit and is intended, when you arrive there, like I said, this is only accessible from the second last level of the game, but the game very conveniently places you right next to the second last level of the game, bypassing everything else you have to do. So it's a huge time skip, and like I've actually run that game in kind of a glitchless setting, and my good times there run around like 15 minutes or so. The run is actually more like with this glitch, it's more like a 210, 220 type run. That's in minutes. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. You said you played this game the first time when you were a kid. How old were you when you played
Commander Keen was probably one of my very first games I ever played. You know, like going back to 3-4 years old, at least, you know, consciously played that sort of thing.
I played Doom for the first time when I was like 4 years old, and I guess that probably speaks for why I'm still playing it today.
Yeah, I was well, I mean, I played Commander Keen. We were a pretty big id family when it came to that. So I don't know if I was playing it until I was at least 5 or something, because I was still interested in the platformers, but I would watch my dad play it a lot too. So.
Oh yeah. My parents always hated Doom. My mom especially. When I was like around the time like the mid '90s when the Columbine school shooting happened, I was like banned from playing Doom, but I still played it anyway.
Well, of course.
Yeah, but it was so annoying to like during that time because like video games were like criticized for all the like the controversial violence and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so dumb. So silly.
Well, I mean, they needed to find something, right? Because it wasn't. This was a pretty significant incident, and they just needed to. You know how the media is.
Yeah, they didn't know who to blame, so they. Yeah, I guess that's what they did. Yeah. So Yeah. So you played Doom or you played Commander Keen when you were pretty young, and then you started playing Doom. That's pretty cool. Did you know that you were going to get into like speedrunning like pretty early on? Did you were you really good at it like when you were really young?
Not at all. What inspired me to start? I had originally watched Awesome Games Done Quick, which was in 2013. So it's been going on for a few years. But I actually saw somebody running Commander Keen there, and I guess it just kind of clicked. And thinking I played that game quite a bit, I could probably do something with that. So. I did a little bit of running there, but then I kind of lost interest. And then around the what was it? What was I even playing at that point? I think I was still doing roguelike Let's Plays. But anyway, that's another other thing we can get to in a moment. But after that, I got sick of that at one point, and I was just kind of on leave playing in some MMO. And then I eventually got bored, and I thought, well, what could I do? And I was just looking at files on my computer, and I just noticed there were still a few files of kind of some old drafts of speedruns. I thought, let's try doing that. So, well, I guess 3.5 years later, and here I am still kind of doing some speedrunning.
It's pretty awesome. Did you figure out like some of these glitches yourself, or did you have to find out by watching other people's runs?
Most of what I have accomplished has just been watching other people. The games were largely known by the time I reached them. I learned some optimizations here and there, but usually nothing game breaking or anything. So
okay.
That wasn't already broke, rather.
That's cool. Yeah, I pretty much learned everything through the Doom community too. I didn't know there was like a whole bunch of stuff that I learned just from people talking about like the source code and stuff in Doom World and things. And like for the longest time, I didn't even know that Doom was a 2D game, like a 2.5D game. And when people were talking about that, I almost didn't believe them. And then I had to like play through the game and realize that there was actually no like rooms that you can go over or under. And I thought that was like completely that like blew my mind. I had no idea.
Well, that's the genius behind Carmack's design, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because it has like it almost like it gives you that illusion of 3-dimensional space because you're going up and down stairs and there's catwalks and all kinds of things. But I didn't even like realize that you couldn't even go under some of the terrain, and that it's just
right. Yeah, I mean that's the way it goes. I mean, I read one of the threads and calling it necessarily 2D or 3D isn't quite even perfect, because the game runs mostly 3D when you're playing it, but it's drawn, it's mapped in a 2D plane.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this collision happens. And then there's also the fact that you have, monsters that have this infinite height on them and things like that.
Yeah.
And it just complicates understanding whether or not it's one or the other. So I just like to say it's 2.5-ish, and then people ask me, and then I go into detail. So.
You're like a snob about that? Like you're always like making sure that people are like using the correct terminology and stuff?
I mean, you can eventually just kind of learn that people are either set in understanding, or you can kind of get them interested.
Yeah.
So, I'll throw them a bone, and if they don't take it, well, that's that.
So this evolution of the WAD thing that you're doing these streams with Tarnsman and Do and Alfonso and Matt Tropiano. Was that your idea? Where did this idea come from?
Well, the name Evolution of the WAD, and I guess largely the concept, actually came from a Doom speedrunner, or a Doom player. You might know him, King Dime. He's on
I know King Dime.
At one point, probably around 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more, he just had the idea of going through a bunch of WADs, like chronologically in order. And while he'd just play through them, and he invited a few people who were knowledgeable enough to discuss them, to kind of just talk over him while he played.
Okay.
And he called that Evolution of the WAD. So.
Oh, okay. So you're just kind of like carrying the torch.
More or less. I guess just, fast forward now, and I kind of pined for some more Evolution of the WAD, because it was just kind of a fun time listening to them talk and watching them play and stuff. So I said, I just tried to get the old group back together, and I said, let's try to do this again. I'm going to try to change the format a little bit, so we're not just necessarily playing the WADs in order, doing a bit of a reboot of the series, and instead focusing on particular topics of Doom mapping and Doom community custom stuff over the years. So we're just kind of looking at topics here and there, and I'm really just testing the waters right now. But after hopefully we hit 10, 15 episodes, we should be in a groove where we can really get into some truly interesting topics.
Yeah, well, you're doing really well. I've watched a few episodes myself, and I like it a lot. You're doing an awesome job.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's cool that you're doing that. So you got the idea from King Dime. When did he stop doing that? Do you know?
I don't know the exact date. A lot of his episodes of Evolution of the WAD are still on Twitch. He might have still been doing it like in late 2014-ish. I think his last episode was Batman Doom, so that would have been about 1999 in terms of the chronological order. So, but the joke, the in joke was that Dime was going so slowly that he wasn't actually going to like meet the pace of Doom mapping, so he'd never actually finish the show.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, the reason you started this Evolution of the WAD thing is kind of similar to why I started World Extermination Radio, because I wanted to see Doom Radio take off. And
right, yeah.
And I kind of started. I mean, it's funny because the story is originally that I kind of like I was a little overzealous in how I attempted to help with Doom Radio. So I contacted Tom Hall, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to do this thing on Doom Radio? Do you want to do an interview?" Without even like talking to Alfonso and Tarnsman first. So I was like, "Hey guys, I got Tom Hall. You should interview him." And like before they've only done like 3 or 4 episodes, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't think that hard about it, but I was really excited about the idea. So I was like, this is going to be awesome. I was like, I'll do the interview if you guys want. And I kind of like, I imagined it being like this huge, like community driven thing, but, yeah, I kind of like stepped all over their toes. So I ended up doing it myself, and it was like way before I was qualified to do it. So like the interview is not even that good, but, I'm
you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. I'm hoping to have him on the show again sometime. Maybe I'll talk to him, hopefully cover some more stuff that we didn't go over in the show. In that particular episode, I
still need to watch some of the earlier ones. I've been going through season 2 of World Extermination, but need to hit them all.
Yeah. I'm still like kind of finding my footing with this, but I'm feeling a little better about it now. I feel like a little more control because like before I wanted to, like when I started it, I wanted to like set up these like pre-made topics
Mm.
and then like just kind of invite people on the show and like kind of like force them to talk about something that they might not even know much about.
Oh.
Yeah,
Right.
so it kind of like made things a little more nerve wracking. So like now I'm doing this show and I'm like just trying to invite people and get them to talk about themselves, what they're doing, because that's something that they know about a lot more than
Yes. Right.
than like asking them to like talk about the source code and all kinds of like all these like intricacies of level design that they probably don't think as much about as hard as I do.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they I'm sure every one you've had on has had a wealth of knowledge in something that allowed you to talk to them for 90 minutes, 2 hours, and it still manages to be a pretty interesting show. So.
Yeah, everyone's been pretty awesome that I've had on the show so far, and it's nice to like get to know people on a more personal level than like just on the forums, because like a lot of stuff gets misinterpreted through text and stuff.
Truly, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. So so what do you have in store for well, have you been like thinking about what other episodes you want to do for Evolution of the WAD?
Well, we have just like a giant like dump of ideas sitting. The next episode, and I guess this
well,
ended up being a lot
you don't
more
have to give
ambitious
away
than
like
I-
everything that you're doing, but like if like what are some
No, it's
things that you
fine.
probably thought? Okay, I didn't
Like,
want to like if you don't want to spoil
there's
anything.
1,000 different topics. So
Okay.
It's not like it's not like we're. I don't even
You're aiming
have
for 1,000
anything
episodes
planned beyond the next one. Is all. But we do have a planned next episode, and I think it might be. Apparently, it's a little more ambitious than I thought, but it's actually Hexen hub maps, or at least Hexen styled hub maps.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look at some of the vanilla stuff. We're gonna look at some of the old like Caldera and whatnot, and Scourge of Viserys, and that one that was made by Kaiser, and I still can't remember the name because it's not in the WAD file. But a lot of things like that, and some Z-Doom attempts and things, and just understanding. Did this actually go anywhere? Were there good ideas? Did they improve upon the original formula, or has it kind of just floated out there without any real support? And these are kind of the ideas I like to get into. Alfonso sometimes jokes, well, not jokes, but he does try to push the idea that we should really be looking into trends, specifically when we do this show. And I understand that. I guess right now I just want to say, okay, let's just hit as many things as we can, see what people are interested in, see what we can get in terms of knowledge from the community.
Yeah.
And then we can like really hit some good, insightful, poignant discussion when it comes to understanding, Doom mapping in the Doom community and what we've done and what we could be doing and what we are doing and what we will definitely be doing. So yeah.
Do you come up with these ideas yourself?
Well, I guess let me think. Like the first episode, just doing Sandy Peterson was basically my idea because I just wanted to do something, no preparation. These guys know Sandy like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
Probably looked at the back of their hands as they were making Doom Twid and making those maps anyway. So they could just talk about it, and I just wanted to see how it went. And of course, I was hoping for a 2-hour episode, and we ended up at 3.5. So, I just tried to make sure we could dial it down for the next one, and it's been a little bit back and forth like that. Dead Simple Maps was kind of my idea. I was helped along in understanding which maps were good for it. And then I wanted to do a mapper retrospective, which has been episode 3, and then we just got we got M-Trop because he's part of the group, and we could grill him as much as we wanted, and we wouldn't hate ourselves for the rest of our lives in regretting how much we did so. And again, that episode, I was hoping for 2 hours. That one was like 4 hours and 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But that was a mistake on my part. Realizing that the estimate was just way too idealistic, and that Mapper Retrospective should probably go more like 3 hours, honestly, just given how much there is to cover and how much they want to talk and how much we want to, kind of form rebuttals and counter arguments and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You have like all that content. Like it's all great stuff. We all love to learn more about Doom and level design and all kinds of things. Alfonso's got some
Right.
pretty cool ideas. It's a cool idea to go for like community map trends and stuff like that. That's pretty interesting.
Well, when I was pitching it to them, that's kind of how I formed it, not realizing that I myself basically know nothing when it comes to these sorts of things. So I just wanted to make sure that we would start with some basic topics, and then like within a few episodes, I kind of want to hit map sizes, map lengths, and just understanding. Well, when we were in 1993 or 1994, those areas, Doom 1 episodes can be speed ran in like 4 minutes, and now if you tried to do that in No End in Sight, it'd probably take 40 or something.
Yeah.
So just that's an observation. That's not even like necessarily pointing out that this is bad or good or anything, but just understanding that and seeing what people like, what mappers like to do. Is this something that is just going to continue and grow, or is this something where we're going to see some kind of like a pushback or anything? Or has there been a pushback? Are there notable examples and things like that?
Yeah, those are interesting questions, and I think I think I've seen topics on Doom World about that before, and it's kind of divisive. It's kind of like right down the middle. Some people really like long maps, and some people prefer shorter ones. I prefer the shorter ones, and
I'm with you there.
Yeah, I have reasons for it, and but some people they like the long journeys and stuff, so they like to like save their progress and enjoy like a really long epic adventure type of map. So
yeah, and I mean I understand that sentiment. I guess it's when you're just thinking about original Doom, it's I guess that's kind of where I tend to fall, is just that this is how they kind of made them, and this is how the game plays well. This is how they originally designed it, and to go so far beyond that, I kind of question whether or not the game holds up well there, or if you're really just going into it for an entirely different experience that was so far away from the intent of the developers.
Yeah, that's right. That is kind of interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because it does seem like people do want to like kind of like go their own way when it comes to mapping, instead of like actually following in the footsteps of the original level designers. And not to say any either way is good or bad, because like I'm all for variety. I like to see what people come up with, and I especially like it when we see like community projects like the Japanese community project and like the Russian community projects and stuff, where they're kind of like isolated from the Doom World community, so they're kind of like mapping under their own terms, and you get to kind of like see like how people would map if they like weren't influenced by like other people in the community and stuff like that, and how they criticize things and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's cool to see their fresh takes on things like that. So that's always cool. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting subject, because like what is the correct length for a map? Is it do you want it to be short? Do you want it to be long? Or do you want it to be right in the middle? And I don't know what makes the best map. We don't really know.
And I mean, is it even a question that you should really be trying to answer? Is this something that we should kind of decide? This is the standard. I would generally say no, but at the same time, we've had 23 years of experience as a culture of Doom mapping. Myself, maybe not included, but you could just kind of look at it and see, well, what are the maps that people really remember, and how do they remember them, and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's how I try to think of it, because when I think of like Doom maps, I think of like the more memorable ones, the ones that have like really like notable features. Like, for example, Gotcha has that big arena fight with the Spider Mastermind and the Cyber Demon.
Yeah, it's a cool set piece.
Yeah, or like the Crusher, it's got the big Crusher. Like those are like those memorable moments, And if you have like a huge giant map with like 1,000 different moments that would otherwise be memorable, they all kind of like blur together, and you don't really remember the entire map by itself. If it's like a 40-minute journey and you're like tired of it after like 10-15 minutes of playing it. But yeah, I mean it's a subjective thing, and that's my opinion about it. I think I prefer shorter maps just because they're easier to remember in those like bite-sized pieces like that.
Right.
And they're more enjoyable for me to play because you can kind of you don't have to commit too much time to them.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of how I see it. But there's people that go through Sunder. There's people that speed run Sunder.
Yes.
And it's those maps can take. I guess I don't know the exact times, but I mean, I'm sure they go past half an hour at times, especially like that Foundry map. And there's maps for all sorts of players, and then those players will go on to make their maps, and people will like those, and that's how it goes, and that's the kind of trending I want to research and understand. And I feel like the Doom World community is an excellent what would I call it? Just an excellent resource for that kind of information. And at the same time, trying to then take that resource and not just bring it back and kind of say to the community, this is our thesis on this, but also to a wider audience to try to get them interested. Whether or not that's going to be towards mapping or playing or just learning to appreciate Doom, it's that's kind of what I'd like to see in the long term, I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was when I talked to Alfonso on our show a few episodes ago, he mentioned how surprised he was that that Evolution of the WOD took off, and I guess that's because of your streaming background. You probably attracted a lot of like regular viewers and stuff to check it out, and that's really exciting to know that Doom is getting kind of like exposed to other communities outside of just Doom World, because there is so much. There is so much content to review and to look at and to analyze and all kinds of stuff like that. It's pretty remarkable.
It is, and that, like I said, that's why Doom World seems like an excellent resource that has yet to be tapped, so to speak. I don't want to exploit it and dry it up or anything. If anything, I'd like to add to it. I'd like to bring more so that it's a even greater a greater community than it is, and to do so is to kind of just get people excited about it. And I would say you don't want people to get excited about it just because, brutal Doom or Doom 2016. You want to show them why this community is exciting to the people who are in it. Yeah. And I think, discussing things like what I'm trying to do in Evolution of the WOD is one of the better ways to go about that.
Yeah, there's so much history in it. And it's so fascinating to reading, listening to John Romero's retrospectives about map design and stuff, and him talking about how he designed the levels and all that stuff. And there's so much thought behind it. And there's thousands and thousands of WODs that have been released over 20 years, and it's just evolved so much. And it's just fascinating to think about what mapping was like back then compared to now, because I mean we have GZ Doom Builder now, and back then people were stitching shit together with DEU and all these these garbage programs that nobody uses today. And I couldn't imagine they had to build their own nodes and stuff like that. And now you just hit the save button on GZ Doom Builder and it's done in a second. I didn't even know by the time I got into mapping, node building was not even, it was a non-issue. I didn't even know that it was a thing. I thought it was just but there was if you read some of the text files and some 1994 WODs, people spent 40, 50 hours on their maps. And every time they saved it, they had to rebuild the nodes, and it would take 15 minutes. And it was just, oh my God, I couldn't imagine how arduous that must be. But in the end, they come out with these maps, and they're not even really that great, but they were probably amazing at the time.
Right, yeah. Which is why it's kind of hard to judge, say, Memento Mori over, I don't know, Community Chest 4 or Nova or anything like that. But you do what you can.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been revealing a lot of stuff, and I see you have kind of an objective approach to it. You're not kind of measuring things up against the competition. You're kind of looking at it individually. Is that right?
That's what I'm aiming for, and whether or not I'm succeeding is truly hard to say, especially for as few reviews as I have at the moment. But I'm just looking at things as purely as I can from the perspective of, does it play well as a video game?
Oh, that's good. That's a very smart way of looking at it.
Well, it's one way. Some people probably couldn't care less about the gameplay, which is why they are giving 5 stars to things that I would see more as a 2-star and things like that. And I still respect it. I'm basically just trying to make a review that almost stands on its own.
Yeah.
So that somebody looking at it can say, and assuming that they can trust my recommendation, it's like, this is something that he thought was a good gameplay experience. I'm looking for a good gameplay experience. Let's go play this.
Yeah. Well, you do a good job. I mean, I've read some of your reviews before, and they're not always for WADs that I've played, but I can tell by the way they're written, you're approaching it very fairly. It's different. I mean, id Games reviews are pretty much notorious for people just being like, oh, this is shit or this is legendary, and that's pretty much the dichotomy of whether something's good or bad, and that's pretty much all the content you get. But that's not entirely true. There are some people who write some pretty nice, helpful and informative reviews, and I'm thankful that you're one of them because someone's got to do it because there's so much stuff out there. And
there is, there's a lot.
Yeah,
gravy.
Yeah, I mean, I've attempted to. I mean, I still do every once in a while. I try to play. I have the entire id Games archive saved on my hard drive. So I have.
No kidding.
Yeah, I found this web crawling program that'll just download everything from it, and I did it like 3-4 years ago, so it's not up to date, but I do like fill it up with like megawads and stuff and things that pop up on Wads and Mods. But I've attempted to play through all of it, and there is like at least a handful of it that's like completely unplayable. There's just no way to beat it. I don't know. I don't want to say that's entire. I don't want to objectively state that it is impossible to beat because there's speedrunners who do pretty amazing things. So I'm sure everything is beatable in one way or another. But for me, I can. There's like a handful of stuff where you're just like, there's like 4 cyber demons and you only have a pistol and there's no ammunition or power ups or anything. And it's just like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? But yeah, and that happens. But I have tried to play through everything, and I've been saving my demos, like my recordings, and that's what I play on my Twitch stream. I have like all these demos that are just playing back of the stuff that I played.
Right,
so you can,
I figured that's what they were.
Yeah, so you can just kind of like watch gameplay as it's going on. I'm trying to like fill it up with like every WAD ever, but it's too much. And I've played most of the mega WADs, but there's still a lot of like a bunch of single level WADs that I still have to play, and a bunch of short episodes and all kinds of things. And I'll probably die before I play everything. I really think that's true. I don't know. I mean, as much as I play Doom, I really don't think I can get everything before I'm dead.
and it's funny because it's such a small part of the universe.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
All of that.
Yeah, because it's one game out of like millions and millions of games out there that have modding communities for that. And there's so much to do in Doom. It's crazy. I don't even want to get involved with other games just because there's so much in Doom already. That's just my nerdy perspective.
No, I mean it's good. True. It's good that we have people like that, because how else are you going to really get something that resembles an intelligent discussion out of it if you just have a bunch of people randomly playing stuff and saying, whatever, it's fine, I'll move on to playing The Sims now, or World of Warcraft, or the new Doom, I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't played that yet. Have you played
Doom? I have. I played it on my PS4, so I got a different experience that some people did. I know when I first played it, I had a lot of trouble with it. I died a lot. And I was talking to somebody who was playing it, and they were playing it on the PC, and they got like 6 or 7 levels into it without dying at all. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? But then I realized that they're playing on a PC with a keyboard and mouse, and like that, I guess maybe it's easier that way than it is to play on a controller. And
so I've heard.
Yeah, so it's something like that. But I don't know. I still enjoyed it a lot. It doesn't go as heavy with the monsters as you would expect, but it compensates with it by making the monsters like really aggressive and really fast and acrobatic and all kinds of things. So they're like running around and jumping and climbing on stuff. So like when you're fighting like 4 or 5 monsters, you feel like you're fighting like 30. So it's pretty fun. It's very action packed, of course. And,
yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I played through the campaign twice. And I played a little bit of Snap Map, but I only played it when it was like relatively new. So like about like 3 or 4 Snap Maps into it, I realized I was like pretty much all the maps are the same. Because that's the unfortunate thing with Snap Map is you get like all these prefabricated rooms and you just stitch them together. And I I tried using Snap Map for a little bit, and like in a few minutes, I made this like huge layout just by stitching a bunch of like random pieces together, and I was like, and you know how we were just talking about whether it's a good idea to be playing long or to be making long or short maps. I was very quickly making a very large map just because these large pieces can stitch together so easily. So I made like a pretty huge map like immediately, and then I figured out after that like pretty much the majority of the excitement of Snap Map is like being able to use its like built-in programming language type thing, and cause events and stuff to happen. I didn't feel like learning that, so I just gave up on it.
Right.
But it doesn't. It's unfortunate because there's so much creativity in like designing like Doom 1 and 2 levels, because you get to create your own shapes and stuff. So you kind of create your own. You have like your footprint and in the map that you're making, because you can kind of create something original. Even though you're using art assets that came with the game, unless you make your own art assets like I do.
And there are a plethora, even if you don't.
Yeah, there's so much to use. There's so much that hasn't even been seen yet or used very frequently. So there's so much at your disposal, and then couple that with like making your own shapes and designing your own architecture and all kinds of stuff. There's limitless opportunity, and it just helps that Doom's just such a fun game, and like everything just works together, just like all the monsters and stuff, how they all their infighting relationships and how the guns feel to use and all kinds of stuff. It's just a great game.
Really does. It's hard to imagine that there wasn't a combination of some really good choices and also a lot of luck.
Yeah.
Because it's just so timeless in how well it plays out after all these years.
Yeah, that's another one of the reasons why I've stuck with Doom for so long. It's just because it's such a good game on its own. It's like the only like the only thing I could ask for is more levels to play it on. And it's just
and that's what we do. So.
Yeah. It's so awesome. But yeah, Doom 2016 is it is good in its own rights. But it doesn't not quite as timeless as regular Doom is. I'm not sure if any game will ever really replace it for me.
Yeah, well, it's at that really weird period of gaming before gaming itself became kind of something that everybody was doing as a hobby, like the way that people go to watch football and baseball and basketball and soccer and golf and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was right before. I would say roughly right before that period. Probably around the time when The Sims 1 came out is when things truly headed in that direction, and we got to like Flash games and Facebook games and stuff. But prior to that, we had the Nintendo and I guess the Super Nintendo, and it was basically a nerd culture at that point. And there's a lot of things that have kind of stayed within general nerd culture, but gaming is one that broke out of it. But Doom was made by people who were part of that nerd culture, and they brought the gaming society into a much larger audience with what they made. And it's crazy the way that worked out. I'm not going to say that Doom is the reason that we have casual gamers now or anything like that. Nothing quite so ridiculous, but it's a damn good game, and a lot of if you look at like the shareware counts of when it first came out, they were just phenomenal, and it's just crazy how it worked out. And honestly, it's like I haven't even considered id Software, at least post say Quake 1 or Quake 2, to be that successful of a game developer. And if anything, they've been. I don't mean anything bad to them, and if anything, they've probably gotten themselves out of it with the new Doom. But they've been kind of riding the coattails of Doom for a good 20 years. Between that and Carmack making some really good engines that have paid off for them.
Yeah. Wait. So
I didn't really mean to use a negative spin at the end of all that. But
yeah. No. I'm trying to understand what you mean.
How impactful Doom was is all.
Yeah. What did you mean by like riding the coattails? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to understand what you meant.
Well, just that they made Doom, and then Doom was so successful that decades later they're still able to make games that a lot of people will buy because they're the company that made Doom.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because like, oh, they made Doom, so this game's obviously going to be somewhat as good as Doom because they're the same company. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right. And there were entire companies spun off from Doom. I guess I can't think of them exactly. Like Ion Storm and and Tom
right.
Hall going off with Apogee and eventually making things like Anachronox and stuff. And these were games that were just almost sold because these guys were part of the development team that made Doom. So it's I guess I've heard a couple of things when I've looked into the stuff, and just like they were almost the first like game developer celebrities, and maybe some of the only ones because we haven't really seen any in recent years that much.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've read in the Masters of Doom that I mean they had Ferraris and shit, and John Romero was married to Stevie Case, who was a Playboy model, which is like they were fucking rock stars.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's probably a better way to put it, rock stars. So.
Yeah, they really kicked ass, and it's true. I mean, like people like when even with John Romero's newish game, what's it called? Black Mirror or something. I forget what it's called. But like that almost took off, and that was like a huge hype train when people found out that Adrian Carmack and John Romero were working together on a new game.
Right, that
got like major publicity, and I'm still interested to see if something good comes out of that. I really hope it does too, because I like John Romero a lot. He's a cool guy.
Right, yeah, and like I said, I think that there was a lot of good design that went into that game, but I also think there was a lot of luck. And as there is with anything, there's always kind of luck. So maybe we won't see another fantastic hit from any of those guys, but make sure that you have the fundamentals down, and then just keep pushing until you get something that sticks, and maybe that'll be the next Doom.
Yeah, there is a way about how like some people will create something really good by accident, and then kind of fall under the illusion that everything they make is great. I don't want to say that because they probably I know they don't like really. They're not that pompous, arrogant assholes type of people. But I know from my own experience, when one of the projects I worked on that became pretty successful was UAC Ultra. And after that came out, I pretty much felt like I knew what I was doing. And when I got started on UAC Ultra 2, it turned out it wasn't that great because a lot of its I think a lot of the success was attributed to the fact that I was working with somebody and we were putting our ideas together. And when I worked on UAC Ultra and UAC Ultra 2 independently, I thought I had everything pretty well thought out. But I think I overthought it a little bit, and I tried to I flew too close to the sun, really. So,
just having just a really small, tight-knit set of developers working and bouncing ideas off of each other and cutting each other off when, one person is going a little bit too far. It's an incredibly successful way at making something that is very strong and timeless. So to one map developers, it's good that you're so ambitious to make them. But I would recommend feedback at the very least, or if you want, just try to find just somebody that maybe you respect as a mapper or as a player, and just have him on as like a major advisor.
Yeah.
If only to just make sure that you're not getting, as you kind of put it, too full of yourself.
Yeah.
And making sure that you just kind of keep yourself in check, because I know that that's the same for me, and it's probably the same for most people. That just it's really hard to just make something that sticks when you have only your perspective to look at.
Yeah. That was I learned that lesson pretty early on once I saw that people weren't really liking. Well, not to say that people weren't really, and it does have its fans. I know some people have been telling me that there's some people that have sent me private messages that say fuck all those guys. USC Ultra 2 is awesome. But I did learn pretty quickly that I I did have testers for it, but they were all like people that I like trusted and were like pretty good friends with.
Okay.
And I think that did kind of tamper with it because I think they were excited to be part of this kind of process. So they were very
Yeah.
positive to
Yeah.
see like a pretty ambitious project and get like a sneak peek of it. So they were very nice about it. And instead of being like, I don't know. And I think I didn't really approach it very well either because I told them like when I sent them the WAD, I told them like all the ideas I had in mind, and they're like, oh yeah, I see these ideas
Hmm.
now that you've explained it. But I didn't really explain it to all the people who played it for the first time, so like they were kind of going in it blind, and they're like, I don't really get the significance of any of this. It was
Right.
kind of a silly experience, but I learned after that that it would probably make more sense if I got testers of people who don't really have any like bias towards me, and would just kind of like look at it objectively and um, look at it from a perspective that from like if it would be interesting to them if they played it by if it were by anybody, not just by me.
Right. Yeah. I just it's probably a bit of an underappreciated skill is to be a critic. Is
Yeah,
to be a critic that can really like just speak in terms that are relatively unbiased and really just try to be talking from the perspective of what do we have here, how can it be improved, and how can well yeah those two things. You don't
yeah,
really need to talk about how to make it worse. Right?
yeah. Well, it's true because there are like there has been like a lot of like mean reviews. Like some people are just saying like this map is garbage. It fucking sucks. There's nothing good about it, and that's just kind of like that does kind of suck because there's people who really get their feelings hurt, and that kind of stops them from wanting to continue mapping, especially if they're a new mapper and they just release something for the first time. They don't really know what they're doing, and
Right.
so there's people that'll like say like really mean shit to them, and then they decide they're gonna quit mapping forever, and that sucks. I don't want to see people like just start and then realize that the Dune community is filled with a bunch of assholes and they're never going to make anything that's anybody's going to like. That sucks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a need for people to be um, very honest, even if it's like
Yes.
kind of scathing. And I had a conversation with somebody recently through private messages, and they were talking about um, well, they wanted me to playtest some of their stuff, and I said I'll only playtest your stuff under the condition that you playtest mine. But I need you to be honest with me. I don't want you to tell me that you're so excited to play something that I made because I haven't made maps in a long time and I'm a famous mapper or whatever. Because
Yeah.
not to toot my own horn, but I have won a CAC award for Mapper of the Year a few years ago. So if people
Cool.
know that, they're like they they kind of they're kind of like humbled to speak to uh, a mapper such as myself, and it's
I'm usually humbled to speak. I was surprised that you even wanted me on the show. Frankly, I just because I feel like I'm a relative nobody in the community, but I'll take the opportunity to
yeah. Well,
discuss
you're
stuff.
doing a lot of cool stuff, and you're doing a lot of helpful stuff for the community, and you have a very interesting perspective, and that's that's what I'm most interested in. Is I want to get like varying perspectives on this show, and I don't really consider I don't think anybody should be the like only certain people have the right to speak about Doom because they know enough about it or whatever. I'm very interested in hearing about from people who haven't played much Doom at all, and just hearing like what like one of the things I actually want to do is I have a friend that I met recently. And I've been wanting to get him to start playing Doom, and I'm I'm kind of like not sure how I'm gonna like break it to him, and I don't know if he's gonna like be into it, but I'd like him to play a little bit of it and tell me what he thinks about it as someone who's never played the game before
Hmm.
and like maybe try some like new wads that came out and stuff and see some screenshots and see if it's interesting to him, stuff like that, and just have him come on the show and talk about it. But I haven't really got that far yet. But yeah, it's but
That would be cool. Yeah, I would definitely like that. That would be a very cool episode, or a very cool anything, whatever. However you uh, end up making that into something that I could see at the very least, if not a bunch of other people.
yeah. And yeah, so I like to get all kinds of perspectives from people because I think everybody's opinion's important in some way or another because we're all here for the same reason. We all like Doom. So so if that's the case, I'm sure anybody has the ability to talk about it, and we're all like on the forums anyway, and we're all posting opinions and stuff, and it's hard to make yourself known on a forum such as Doomworld. If
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of old people. There's a lot of old hats here. So
yeah, and I'm technically one of them because I've been here for like maybe 10, 11, 12 years. I was lurking for like 2, 3 years, and then I signed up after that. And yeah, but I'm such a big nerd about level design and stuff, so I don't think I'm ever gonna like quit this community because I think about it all the time. I'm always thinking about like new ways to be innovative and stuff like that, and how to make gameplay fun and how to make level design more captivating and all kinds of crazy shit.
Good.
Yeah.
Never lose that mindset, basically.
Yeah. So have you tried much mapping yourself, or you're mostly just playing and reviewing stuff?
I Pinchy's sitting in the chat. At his request, at least, I did look into the mapping tutorials for Doom Builder, and I got that far. But I haven't really done anything with that. I know how to use it basically, but I have a lot of grand ideas, and I know that if I start doing it, it's gonna train wreck, and I basically just don't want to train wreck on something that I actually consider a good idea. So I'd like to just start small, but at the same time, I can't motivate myself to just make a little thing. So I don't know. I'm focused right now, as you kind of mentioned, on just playing and understanding and just getting a sense for what makes good maps and what makes bad maps. And at least in terms of gameplay, like in terms of aesthetics, my maps would probably look like something out of 1994. But I really try to aim for something that plays well.
Well, that's good. That's very important. I would definitely. I think I've talked to some people about this before, and I would definitely recommend trying a community project because they're a dime a dozen, and you can be part of like a big thing, which is pretty cool. And those megawatts tend to last a pretty long time. People know about them. Like you talked about Nova, for example. Like that was a community project designed to introduce like new mappers into mapping.
Right.
And it went really well, and it's pretty popular, and people know about it. It's interesting, and it got a lot of people, like it got their foot in the door as far as their mapping career. So it was a cool opportunity to try stuff. Speed mapping sessions are also very cool. I don't know how often those happen anymore. I think what's that guy's name started those Eagle speed mapping sessions recently. That might be a cool thing to try.
Yeah. I could look into that.
And it's a good speed mapping, especially because of the limitations of it. It kind of keeps you in check from like trying anything too ambitious. So like you aim to create something that's kind of small, just so you know you'll have something finished by the time the time limit's over.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, even if I don't end up doing a speed mapping session, I should probably just think under those circumstances, like, okay, this is I'm just gonna make a little theme, whatever. Just spend a half a day, just do it, post it, see what it is. Hopefully, it's not shit. Okay, there we go. And there's your first map, and then you just go from there.
Yeah, just pick something and stick with it. And honestly, if you're humble about it and you make if you work on like a map or two or something and you post something on Wads and Mods, just post a couple screenshots. Make sure you tell people what source port you've tested it on and things like that.
Right. Yes.
As long as you give people the information and give them some screenshots to look at, most people will be very positive. Like most people are pretty nice and they're happy to play new levels and things like that. So just give it like a cool name or like something like that, and you could try adding a couple new textures or something if you want, and that'll really make your map shine and all kinds of stuff like that. And if you're humble about it, you're not like, check out my awesome map, guys, this is awesome, like whatever. Just like make sure you just tell people, hey, I'm looking for some criticism. I'm not sure how I'm doing yet. What do you think? That'll be like the nicest way to go about it, and people will be very receptive and they'll give you good advice. And that advice will really get you on track, because if you haven't mapped, I should take this advice myself, because if you haven't mapped or haven't mapped for a while, it's hard to be in tune with what's going on in the community and what people like. Because people's tastes tend to change like every few years or so. Like I never would have imagined that Slaughterfest maps would have taken off, and they've gotten really popular in the last like 5-10 years.
They have, yeah.
And before, like when I first started in the community, Time of Death was still doing them, but he was a very like very specific type of mapper. Not many people try his stuff, but he does a lot of crazy stuff now, and a lot of people try it, and it's he's pretty well known now. And I always see like when people are like reviewing when I see like in streams and stuff, I'll see in the chat if people are like reviewing WODs, they'll be like, hey, try Sunder, try Chillax, and crazy shit like that, because they want to see people scream on the stream or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody knows about these like super hard maps now, and it seems like they're getting pretty popular. But yeah, just be humble and just try something and see if it works.
Right. Yeah.
And I've been trying to keep I've been trying to make like tutorials and stuff for people to read to kind of get an idea of like what good gameplay and stuff is. And it's not even though it's a very subjective thing, I just like to give people some food for thought, things to keep in mind when they're mapping and things like that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is really difficult. And whenever I even play games in general, I try to keep a critical eye in mind with respect to the gameplay and just understanding, what am I doing here? Is it something I'm having fun with? If I'm having fun with it, is it because of the gameplay? If I'm not having fun with it, is it because of the gameplay? And just getting the sense of, what about this situation was particularly good or particularly boring or terrible or anything like that. And that's kind of just the knowledge that I've built up over time. So
yeah, it's very smart.
I'm hoping to bring that.
Yeah, it's a very analytical way of looking at it, and it's a very smart thing to do. Because that's how I did it too. I played a lot of Megawads and stuff before I started mapping. So I played like all the way through Alien Vendetta and Scythe 2 and all the popular ones. And it gave me an idea of like what's out there and what can you make and what is good. And I had a pretty good idea of what I liked and stuff like that. So it's cool, man. It's good. It's good that you're interested in mapping. I'm always encouraging people to start mapping because it's a fun thing to get into.
Yeah, probably this is the most cliche thing ever, but my very first post on Doom World was a Megawad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of different. It's just because I'd been thinking about it a lot, and I guess it's kind of what inspired me to go on Doom World at all. But I basically want, maybe eventually when I have enough backbone in some sort of mapping career, to go to Heretic and make a Doom 2 version of Heretic. That sounds cool. Wait, understand what that might be.
So would it be like Heretic with Doom guns, or what is that exactly?
No, well, okay. The idea is that if you compare Doom 2 to Heretic, Heretic's pretty darn lackluster. It's basically that game that had Tome of Power.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, other than there being a lot of issues with the balance and stuff, is that if you compare Heretic to Doom 1, it's actually a lot more favorable. Doom 1 still has plenty of things that make the core gameplay interesting, but Heretic has a lot of novelty to it, and that novelty actually carries quite a ways in. And, it's what a lot of people say. If you're going to map for Doom, probably map for Doom 2, because that's what has by far the most variability and the most possibility when it comes to gameplay.
Yeah.
So I just had the idea, well, what if you took Heretic and you added, like a good dozen or so enemies, maybe a couple new weapons, changed up the maps, and just kind of threw that together, and would that be something that would be interesting to people?
It sounds like a cool idea.
So that's the basic idea.
Yeah, because people do say that like Heretic doesn't get enough love, and I kind of do agree with that, but at the same time, I don't want to like map for it because it just doesn't have that much exciting stuff. I mean, it does have cool monsters, but the one thing that drives me crazy about Heretic is that all the monsters are just like these huge damage sponges, and they just kind of like take forever to kill. Like most of the even the easiest monsters take like 4 or 5 hits with the ethereal crossbow, and it's just like it just takes forever to pummel through everything. It's faster to just run past everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So
that's what you see a lot of those runs. Any speed runs you see of Heretic are pretty much have out the ethereal crossbow, use it to knock back enemies, and run through the levels.
Yeah, you just push everything out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your idea is like kind of to make some sort of. So is your idea like more to like change the monsters around and the weapons to make them more applicable to, or like more comparable to something like Doom 2 as far as
Basically.
gameplay?
I would want to add in new enemies altogether. I mean, if you look at Doom's set, the most interesting enemies tend to be the glass cannon hit scanners, the lost souls, just because they're not with pain elementals, maybe, but
Yeah.
just the fact that they fly and they smack into you, and things like the Caco demon, because it's a flyer that's also like a projectile. And other than that, you have imp, you have stronger imp, you have really strong imp with the rocket, and so it's not, there isn't a lot there to work with. And I recently played through Double Impact, and I have to say that's an excellent way to use the Doom 1 menagerie, but there's only so far you can really go with it before it starts getting a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
And the same is basically true of Heretic. There are some kind of interesting enemies, but most of them are imp with slightly variation in their HP and what kind of damage they do.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So you want to have like, so you want like a Heretic equivalent of like the Revenant and the Mancubus and all kinds of stuff like that.
right.
Okay.
And maybe not in the literal sense, but in having that dynamic attitude. The very
Yes.
first enemy I had kind of an idea would be like a tree ant, and it would have two attacks. One that would be a triple sort of slightly homing in with the side attacks, just like roots going under the ground and smacking you. And the second attack would actually be a hit that when it does so, it knocks you back really far. And I realize that's actually kind of like what the Minotaur does, but this would be not something that takes, a million years to kill. So,
Yeah. Huh.
but the idea would be that the damage on the knockback hit wouldn't actually hurt much, but the attack that was the roots would actually hurt a lot. So the idea of the enemy was to kind of keep the distance, and the idea for you would be to get close, which is something that you don't really see in a lot of Doom enemies either. The idea that you actually want to be next to something, other than like if you have the timing for Revenants down, you can do stuff there. But.
Yeah, it's very true. And that's pretty cool. I'd like to see you like, it would be interesting to see if you like started your mapping career and like just worked on like Doom stuff and then eventually like went out with a bang by making this cool like Heretic Megawatt TC.
I mean, it would be cool. It's an incredibly ambitious thing because it would involve, the way I would want to go through it, it would involve new music that would sound like it was made for Heretic. You would need all of these sprites that would work into it and all of this coding. And honestly, I would probably need to develop an executable akin to something like from out of Chocolate Doom or Chocolate Heretic just to kind of fit it in if I didn't want to go, say, the Z-Doom route.
Yeah, right.
So that's an enormous amount of work. But, if it's stuck and it got actually people interested in Heretic, or at least using the extension of Heretic that I kind of created, I think that'd be cool because there's some good stuff in Heretic. There is, at least in the aesthetics sense, at least in the idea of having this tome of power, even though it horribly breaks the game. But and having items you can pick up and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the Doom World community is mostly Doom, and I mean, it's not like I'm trying to say, oh, I want to go make Heretic World, but it'd be cool to see some branches that really attract people to more than just Doom, even though it's very similar.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, I hope that kind of takes off. It's a pretty cool idea.
We'll see. I mean, it'll be a while before I feel confident that I can make true progress on it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other stuff you wanted to talk about? Like I don't know, what other stuff do you do? Like is there any other stuff that you do outside of like Doom and stuff that you like to talk about?
These days, I mean, I am kind of dedicating myself to a lot of Doom when it comes to hobby type time that I have, but I also, well, I mean, I guess I could talk a little bit more about the speedrunning stuff I did, or okay. I could talk about when I very briefly mentioned that I did Let's Plays of roguelikes.
What's that about? I haven't played many roguelikes, but I'm kind of familiar with the concept.
Well, I guess to really start, I guess it was around college years. So going back close to 9-10 years ago, I just got interested, and I don't even remember how, but I ended up getting interested in, of all things, Doom the roguelike. So that stuff keeps repeating in my history. But it was a pretty fun game. Basically, it was if you could call it so, it's a fast-paced roguelike. It's still like the turn-based stuff that you'd expect out of something like NetHack or Dungeon Crawl or anything like that. But it's really designed with action and combat and stuff in mind, and you have to understand how to work strategies in it and stuff. But it's pretty fun just to kind of go through it and try to go through it fast. And I played that a lot. I actually got to the point where I was slightly on the development team for it, at least in terms of helping out with a few things here and there.
Wow.
So, and then at that point, I guess I started. My interest started waning, but I was still interested in just the concept in general of a roguelike. And if I were to try to define a roguelike, I would be here all day. So I'll just say that it was games that were, if you know Doom the roguelike, kind of similar along that vein, but of course moving and branching off into things like Rogue and Hack and Band and ADOM, and even games like Splunky, if you happen to know that more kind of recent game. But there's a lot when it comes to roguelikes in the indie gaming industry, or just the indie gaming hobby market. And I just would go, and it's probably the stupidest thing you would think to do, but I would go in and I would let's play these games having zero experience with them. And the point of roguelikes is to play them for ages and ages and ages until you really understand what you're doing and can do like good playthroughs. So here I am just blindly stumbling through these things and just trying my best to have words to say as I do so. And I did that for like 2.5 years.
So you have like Let's Play videos of like roguelikes and stuff?
Yeah, they're on a different channel. It's back when I used to go under the name Game Hunter, which I made when I was 10 and didn't realize just how generic that was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And did you say you speedrun these games?
Not roguelikes, no.
Oh, okay.
I guess you would almost never really call it speedrunning for most roguelikes. There tend to be kind of challenge runs.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are ones that you can complete rather quickly, but they take very long periods of time. And usually they're timed more in how many turns it takes rather than how quickly you were actually able to complete them. So, there's people that do them.
I always wondered I always thought it'd be cool if we could see text adventure speedruns. You ever see text adventures where they're just like these stories where you type the actions that you want to do? Like,
I've actually watched a few myself before.
They actually have those. I asked about that. Yeah. I asked about that a few years ago on Doomworld forums, but nobody said anything. But I guess that was I think that was before like Games Done Quick became like a thing. But I always thought it'd be like kind of funny to just be like, I mean, I guess it would be like so simple because you would just like remember the or you could just make a list of like all the commands you have to type in, like in order.
Oh yeah.
And you could just type them as fast as possible.
That's not really that different from other speedruns. Because a lot of people think, this speedrun is really different from this one. Speedruns are just, you get so good at knowing exactly what you need to do. And occasionally there's variability. But like even in Doom, if you were perfect, you would play the game exactly the same way. And by definition, that would produce exactly the same results in Doom. So, that's where a lot of speedrunning comes in. Occasionally there's variability, but you learn pretty much an enormous predictability sphere of what can happen. And that's why there's always that phrase, at least you might have heard it at Games Done Quick if you've watched them, the that's never happened before sort of thing. Because it sounds like a joke because it comes up a lot, but that happens, is that you get used to all these things and you get used to the high probability stuff. And then just like a giant curveball comes your way and it's like, well, that's never happened before. And now I'm ready for it. So that's how that tends to go.
I was hoping there was like a community for it and they were like talking about like people like trying to beat each other's like words per minute, and like and, like they're practicing on like Mavis Beacon teaches typing and things, like trying to like work on their typing skills so
Man,
that
I
they can
had
beat
that
each
game.
other in this text adventure speed run.
I've actually done. I guess I've technically done. Well, I haven't done like a pure text adventure speedrun, but you know the basically the precursors to point and clicks, where there was somebody on the screen, but you still had to type things, actions out and
Yeah,
stuff.
I know what you're talking about.
I've actually done a couple of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, have you ever heard of Hugo's House of Horrors?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I've run all 3 of those games.
That's funny.
They're only like 3 minutes, except for Who Done It, which is 11 minutes because it's stupid and I hate it. But that's another story.
Those text adventures can get, or not those point and click adventures can get really long. I've seen like some Let's Plays that are like as much as like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want those games, I mean, this is something I could talk to at great length, but talking about what constitutes a game as opposed to a video game, I feel like text adventures, or at least the idea of the Telltale marketed game and stuff, kind of skirt the line there a little bit. It's almost more like an interactive book.
Yeah, it's like those choose your adventure books. Did you ever see those? Like where it's like
right, yeah.
pick an action, you go to this page, whatever, and then the story continues from there.
So, and it's that, you know, I'm not trying to judge it and saying it's a bad video game. I'm trying to judge it in saying that there is very little in the way of game here for me to be interested in.
Yes.
And that's fine from a consumer standpoint of somebody who is really just looking for a book where you can kind of, at your own pace, enjoy the various flavors of it and enjoy the sights and the scenery and the people talking, and the voice acting and the music that goes along with it, and all of the goofy antics that can arise. But you know, when I'm playing games, I really do try to look at gameplay. So
yeah, me too.
I'm not particularly interested in a lot of those. So
yeah, I need like those adrenaline rushes that you get from games where you're just like really focused, and because like there's nothing in life that's really that that's like really that compelling, you know? Like there's the way, like when I'm dealing with like hundreds of monsters at once in Doom, and I'm like trying to dodge all these projectiles at the same time while killing everything, it's just like it's very challenging, and my everyday normal life is very boring.
right.
Between like sitting at an office and typing on a computer and like sitting in traffic, it's just like really nothing very exciting or very stimulating for my imagination or any of my reflexes or my skills or my mind. And just video games are just that way to keep me focused and entertained and just like really sharp, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like them. But, you know, there's flavors for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we could wrap this up. I really enjoyed talking to you, CapnClever. This was really awesome.
Yeah, this was cool. I'm wondering how much I would have to talk about if we did it again, or from any other person's interview for that matter. But
yeah, well, it was really fun to have you. And if we do come up with more stuff, I'd be happy to like discuss some topics with you, and we can like maybe think of more stuff to cover like on this show if you'd like. And
all right.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to if because Go Lord was on for season 2 and 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I just noted, okay, you're up for a repeat. So
yes. Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Goat Lord's the man. I like having him on the show. And
I'm not trying to force anything by suggesting it, of course.
No, don't worry about that. It's really no problem. The thing is, I'm here for everybody else. I want to have. I don't want to like command the show and make people have to do what I want them to do. Just if you're interested in talking about something, I'm interested in hearing about it, and we can discuss it on the show, and people can hear about it, and they can listen to it while they're mapping or whatever else they're doing. And yeah, so it was a pleasure having you on the show. You were an awesome guy, and thank you for watching all the episodes that you have and blowing up my chat and being awesome. And
thanks. Well, it's fun. It's fun to listen to it, and it's why I come back every time.
Yeah, and I look forward to watching more of Evolution of the WAD.
Great. Yeah. Well, this is probably going to date it. It's probably not going to be this week, but next week. So for anybody who's watching this live.
All right, cool. And shit, I was gonna say something else. Oh, I wanted to ask you if do you have like what other ways can people contact you? Like, what is your like Twitch stream, and like do you have like a YouTube channel, things like that?
Well, I guess Twitch would be the biggest, easiest way. I go by CapnClever there.
Okay.
And other than that, I also, well, I do have the YouTube channel where I also put like Evolution of the WOD and stuff. Again, if you search, I'm pretty sure if you just searched, let me try this myself. YouTube CapnClever.
Yep. Yeah, it
comes
up immediately.
So you can just look that up.
All right, so just look up your name. Okay.
Yeah.
And Twitch is twitch.tv/CapnClever, CapnClever.
That's right.
Okay.
You know, I never mentioned how I came up with that name. I'll just really quick.
Yeah, sure.
When I decided that I wanted to speedrun Commander Keen, I just said, okay, I need a name on Twitch. And then I just spent, I'm not kidding, 3 hours trying to come up with something. And eventually I just said, okay, we'll just make it based on Commander Keen. And that's where CapnClever is. So there you go. That's why I'm CapnClever.
Wait, so is there a character on Commander Keen named CapnClever? Or...
No, but if you look at Commander to Captain to Cap'n, Keen, Clever.
It's smart.
That's it.
It's smart. It's like there's a lot of like band names and stuff that are like very like for example, there's like a whole genre called D-Beat, which is like based off of this band called Discharge, because they had like a very repetitive drum beat that was like really popular. So there's all these bands that start with like dis. So there's like Discontrol and Disassociate, all kinds of like crazy shit like that.
Really?
And it's just like but there's all kinds like I listen to a whole bunch of metal and stuff. So like there's a lot of bands where you can kind of tell what they're going to sound like based on what the band name is. And CapnClever is really smart. It does. It sounds like it. Even without having played Commander Keen, I could tell that you were like a Commander Keen fan just because of like the way it just kind of sounds alike. It just kind of rolls together.
That's what I was going for.
All right, cool. All right, thanks again, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right, the next episode, I believe I'll be talking with Jimmy. So stay tuned for that. And we have some more episodes coming. I've been talking to a lot of people.
I'll be looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people. So this World Extermination's blowing up. I'm getting a lot of cool people to be on the show. And I'm excited. So thank you for listening. And good night, Space Marines.
Later.